Okay, thank you. Welcome everyone on our second webinar of our series, The Future of the Product Development. This time we are going to talk more about the products, about product development, about actually starting product development. The topic is, as you can see, how not to turn a great product idea into a terrible failure. Actually, we'll focus more on the startup founders mindset, because from our experience, in most cases, when the great product idea became a failure, it was the reason of the founders mindset, which was not the best from the very beginning. So my name is Wiktor Żołnowski, and I'm co-founder of Pragmatic. Usually I am way more focused on building great products, not about talking about products and product development. But recently we decided to share our experience and to share our knowledge with you, so you can also be better in product development, and especially in modern product development. Together with me, there is Łukasz Ciesielski, who is our head of marketing at Pragmatic. Łukasz today is more in a shadow mode. He's right now answering your questions on chat next to this YouTube video. He will also have a few questions for you during the conversation, and he will help me manage it from the backstage.
Yes, welcome everyone.
So this video is a live stream, so you can ask the question whenever you want. Whenever something won't be clear, we're going to answer it, or maybe we'll leave it for till the end, but we'll try to do this on the way. I will also ask you a few questions during the presentation, so if you could put your answers on the chat, it would be great. So we'll benefit from the interactions during this live video. The video will be recorded without your comments, so no worries. And everyone who sign up will receive the access. If you are watching this video after it was live, you can always contact us, and we'll try to answer your questions or help you in that way or another. So the agenda for today is going briefly to those 6 points, which starts with defining successful startups and what do they have in common. Then I will move to the topic of a scope, especially the fixed scope and the fixed mindset or fixed scope mindset and what's wrong with it. Then I will move a little bit more why people are still using a fixed scope, and then we'll move, if not a fixed scope, then what are the other options, and then we will start talking about how to start the product, if not starting with the fixed scope. And of course, at the end, we'll wrap the things up, and I will share with you our experience from working with successful startups and successful startups founders. And I will tell you a bit more of what we saw that do they have in common. So a little big background of what we are doing of Pragmatic Coders. We are a software development company that is working with startups, scale-ups, but also with the technology companies. We also work from time to time as an external innovation department for the corporate as well. So we have a lot of experience in terms of building a product. And in the last few years, we had a chance to work with few awesome clients, few awesome startups, few awesome companies that managed to grow, some of them from 20 to 2,000 people right now during the last 2 years. Another grow their revenue streams. We also took a part in fundraising with those startup founders. And based on that, we found that successful startups that we had the pleasure to work with had something in common, and maybe not the startup itself, because as you can see, and you can Google the brands that I presented here, those are totally different, wide range of products. So product domains. So it's not about the domain, but rather the way that they approach to building their products, and that mainly was based on the mindset of a startup founder. Okay, let's move on. So as I mentioned, we found out that that the startup founders, the successful startup founders, have few things in common. I will come back to this later on too, but let's start with those three things. So first of all, we found out that like this is based on our experience. This is not based on some psychology or something else, but on our experience only. Of course, we have only like a small amount of data based on, I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 startup founders that we had the pleasure to work with. But what we found out is that those startups that became a great success with us or without us later on when we track their progress, those startup founders, when they came to us, they never ever asked us for the estimates of a fixed scope. So they never ever came to us with some fixed scope documentation, and they never asked for the price. Of course, they were interested how much our services cost, how we do the development and other stuff, but they never came to us with the defined scope, with the documentation, and they never asked us to do the estimation based on the documentation. We did a few other things together with them. I will share it a little bit more later on, but they never came with the fixed scope, and I think this is the most important here. So actually they rarely came to us with any scope at all. Like usually they came to us with some problem or challenge that they ask us to help with solving, not with the documentation or the solution that they want to be implemented. So I see the question that what kind of services do you offer again? So we are a software development company, or actually IT product development company, because our services are a little bit more than just software development, because we offer to our clients a complete product development team that are led by the product owners. I will talk a little bit more about this later on when I will be talking about the teams and other stuff, and what distinguish the startup founders who know how the team should look like, and etc. Yeah. Okay. So as I mentioned, we do have like this few clients that became very successful, build a great products, get attraction, or get a lot of funding, and of course this is not all of our clients. Some of our clients were not so successful, or are not successful yet. So so we distinguish like two groups of these clients, and one of them is the ones who we managed to convince that there is a better way than working on a fixed scope. And the second group are simply the clients that we do not work together, or we are still trying to convince them by empirical cooperation, where we started with some small fixed scope product, fixed scope project actually, and then we try to convince them on the go that there are better ways to organize the work and to build our cooperation than just signing a fixed scope, fixed price, sometimes even fixed time contract. So how does it work in reality? I'm pretty sure that I'm pretty sure that there is plenty of people here who are experienced in product development and project management. I'm pretty sure that you already seen this picture. This is like a project management triangle that describe 3 dimensions that you can operate when you are managing the project. One of them is scope, the second one is cost, and the third one is time. This is a concept that is right now around 70 years old, and believe me or not, it's still used. I don't think it's good that it's still used, because it's pretty old. Like 70 years ago, come on, we didn't have an internet. I'm not sure if we do have at first computers, but come on, it was like a huge room with the computers, and come on, it was totally different world. The programming was totally different than it is right now, and this concept is still here, and plenty of people are still trying to use it. I will tell you a little bit more about it and what is wrong with it in a second. So that management triangle evolved into this, let's call it a star. This is made by PMI, by Project Management Institute, which is, as you can see, it's a little bit more extended. It's not just only scope, time, and budget, which time is scheduled here, but it's also a risk, resources, and quality, like a three other dimension that interact with this triangle that will most probably suffer if you will try to shrink the budget or shrink the scope, or actually extend the scope, or make things faster. And there is one thing that is wrong in both of these two models, which I've noticed like something around 10 years ago. I used to, or even more, I used to work as a quality assurance engineer for one of the companies. So as you can imagine, I was responsible for quality. So working with this management triangle, I was experiencing the problems with the quality the most. So I tried to look for solution around, and it occurs that actually the fact that the quality is not a part of this triangle, it's just somewhere inside, and magically we will build in quality or not. This is the reason of the most of the failures of products or projects at all. It's not only for startups, but any project, any IT project usually fail because people are using this triangle and forget about quality. There's one more thing, like in a modern software development, cost equal time. Why? Because right now, when you try to build a software product, you need to hire people, you need to hire developers, you need to pay them the salaries, you need to pay them the some rates, some daily or hourly rate for building the product. So actually, time equals cost. When time equals cost, then in our triangle we have other three dimensions, like we have scope, cost, which equals time, and quality. And whenever we want to cut the cost, one of two others will suffer. So when we will cut the cost, most probably the scope will have to be shrinked, or if the scope and the time, or scope and cost will be the same, then the quality will suffer. And making it explicit is, I think it's the basics that everyone who is building the product right now need to know, need to understand, and need to operate in that. So yeah, let's move forward and let's talk about actually the scope, because this is something that I think that many startup founders, many product managers are focused the most, and usually maybe not the best startup founders, but maybe it is not so successful. What they are usually thinking is how to increase the scope, what else to add to the product, what else our users needs. And most of these founders that are not very successful think that they actually know what users want, but the facts are pretty different. Those numbers are based on the Standish Group report, which is called Chaos report. And it's done like this is a survey that is done like every year or every 2 years among various various IT projects, and they are surveying how many of product functionalities are used by the users after they are delivered to the production. And the results are that 45% of functionalities that are developed, that are released to production, are actually never or almost never used. Another 19% are used only occasionally. and only 36 in total percent of functionalities are used often or always by the users. What does it mean? It means that 64% of functionalities is not used at all, or is rarely used. What does it mean? It means that most probably when you are building a product, you invested 64% statistically 64% of your budget into the things that was totally useless and nobody ever used. So this is the question that you, I think, need to answer to yourself when you are a product development manager, or if you are a startup founder. If it's really good to actually increase the scope, add things to the scope, or maybe there is another way to do that, and rather than thinking about what to add to the scope, you need to think what could be removed from the scope, or what could be done later on after we get some feedback. And this is actually what our product owners in our product development teams do. Like, their goal is not to work on the requirements or specifications or like this, but their main goal is to how to cut the scope to the absolute minimum. What could be removed, and actually the best metrics for our product owners is how good they are in removing things from the scope. So when we have a product backlog, a list of product features that need to be developed, when we try to measure how good our product owner is, we are looking on the things that actually he removed from the product backlog, not on the things that were added to the product backlog. So the more things that were removed from the product backlog during the process, during the product development, the better the product owner is, because that means that we are minimizing this 64% to some minimum. So the next step is that whenever product manager or startup founder went to the team or internal team or external provider like our company, they usually, what they do, they have a scope and they ask for the price. And they believe that the price will be based on some educated guessing process called estimation. So there is usually a team that is doing this estimation. And here you can find a quote from Albert Einstein, what he think about estimation. Actually, it's not a quote from Albert Einstein, of course, but every quote of Albert Einstein in the internet is not his quote, but whatever. So estimation is a process of turning useless documentation of functionalities that in most cases should and most probably will not be ever implemented into the and those is turned into the amount of money that one side is willing to pay to the other for the product development, the development of a product that will be used only in 36%. So, so why people are asking for the estimates if that looks like that? I will answer it in a couple of minutes. How the process of estimation looks like. So whenever this software buyer or sponsor, if it's an internal team, came to the people who are going to develop the product, they gave them the specification. This team goes through some process which in most cases looks more or less like that. So at the beginning, there's like a 1, 2, or 3 people, let's say business analyst, manager, developer, who are reading the documentation, the specification that the sponsor, the founder or product manager came to them. They split it into some chunks, some smaller features that are easier to be estimated, and actually it's a good thing to do. Like when you have a complex complex problem, you try to decompose it to some to many small, not so complex projects that could be actually estimated. And this is actually a quite good approach. Then those people are guessing, because there is no other way to do this. They're guessing. Sometimes they do this in more educated way, especially if they did the same thing or similar thing in the past. That case, that this is easier or more accurate, but in most cases they do not. So they are guessing how long will it take and what actually the author of the documentation have thought about the things that they wrote in the documentation, and they are guessing how long will it take to build these things that they are that they think what the author have in mind when writing the documentation. Then there is a manager who is multiplying this result. First, they sum it up, like all of these chunks, to some big number that you will have to pay for the product in total. And they are multiplying it by some factor. And here are the few approaches. Some companies who are more aggressive in sales, they are multiplying it by the factor that is lower than 1, which is decreasing the number. Other more experienced companies, or the companies that already had some huge project failures in the past, they are less aggressive. They multiply it by, let's say, 1.3, 1.5, just to take into consideration the risk that the team that provide the numbers were not 100%, come on, 100%, not even 50% sure what they are estimating, and that they will actually know how long it will take. It's almost impossible to guess that. So they are trying to include this risk of unknown into the estimation, so then they will actually make a profit on the project. Of course, at the end, before the estimates went to the buyer, if it's like a process in, like I've seen in many software vendors, then there is a salesperson which is cutting the number in half or by 20-25%, just to satisfy the budget that the client have. And of course, the salesperson is guessing what is the budget. And of course, hopefully at this moment, the contract is signed and the development starts, and everyone is happy and believes that they make a great deal, until it occurs that they actually did not make a great deal, and that things went wrong, and that it's not so great as we thought, and that at some point it occurs that things that were estimated are not the same as they want to actually build. Here I have a question for you. What happens if in such a case where the buyer came to the team and asked for the estimates, they provide the estimates, and what if they were wrong? We kick off the development, we are like a half year late, let's say 6 months later, and now it occurs that the estimates were wrong, and the budget was not enough, and someone need to pay for the extra time that is spent on the product development. What do you think? Who is gonna pay for that? Is it the software buyer or software vendor? Who is gonna pay the difference? You can put it in the comments. Since we have like some delay here, I will wait for your answer. I see you're afraid to guess. Buyer, okay. Okay, yes. So what the vendor could do in such a situation, what the software vendor could do in such a situation. First of all, they could negotiate the contract. Some of them do. But if that is not possible, if the contract were explicitly describing the scope, describing the time, the budget, and the buyer don't want to change it, what usually happens is that vendor is cutting the quality. If you are familiar with working with software outsourcing providers and etc., you may be, or hopefully you are not, but you may found this problem that at the very beginning of the cooperation, you have a team of senior developers, awesome people, awesome developers who are doing the great job on the highest quality pretty fast. But then after some time, they will be replaced by some junior developers or some, let's say, mid developers who were not so good. The communication were not as great as it used to be, and the quality of the product were not the same as at the very beginning. So this is actually the way that vendors are dealing with the contracts that were signed and that explicitly describe the budget and the scope, because it's pretty easy to actually put the scope into the contract and sign it. And of course, it's also obvious that you can put the price, the budget, you can put the scope, and you can put the time, and you can sign a contract on that. But it's not so obvious, and it's not so easy to define the quality level in the contract. Actually, quality is a term that is so inobjective. Like it's very for you, the quality could mean something totally different than for the software developer who thinks the quality is the quality of the code. For you, it might be more usability or user friendliness of your app, or other things like reliability or zero bugs found on production. Yeah, that could be a defining definition for quality. For a software developer, it could be something totally different. And most probably, you both are right. And the definition of equality is pretty extensive. So who is going to pay for that? Actually, at the end of the day, it's a buyer who is paying for that, because the buyer is receiving the product that is at the low level of quality. Before I will move on, I will share with you like our experience from the past almost 6 years since we are running this software house. Like we have like a few projects with a few clients that we start cooperation with some kind of scope. Sometimes it was a fixed scope, sometimes it was initial scope. Of course, we did a lot of estimation for our clients. We tried to be the best in what we are doing, and we try to provide the most reliable estimates for those clients. We didn't try to cheat. We were pretty transparent in the process. How does it look like? And we tried the best to provide the best price estimate, cost estimates for the client, because we understand that the clients, the buyers, the founders, startup founders, they need to know how much money they need for a product. But what happens, and it's in almost all of the cases, and even in the cases that we have like a fixed scope signed into the contract, fixed budget signed into the contract, projects, we experience it the same. After usually 4 to 6 weeks of development, and since we are working in iterations that are usually 2 weeks long, that's called in sprints. We are using Scrum framework for that. And we, after each iteration or during each iteration, we deliver a new increment of the product that is presented to the startup founder, to the product managers, to the stakeholders, and they provide the feedback. And this feedback is included into the requirements that are usually changing on the way. And I must admit that in all of our cases, all of our projects that we worked, usually after say 6 weeks, or in the worst case 8 weeks, and it was only because the feedback loop were longer or not as good at the very beginning. Usually after 6 to 8 weeks, our team were working on something totally different that was in the initial scope that was estimated. So all the time, all the effort that was made to prepare the estimation, and all the effort that was made by the startup founders or the product managers to actually write down the scope, figure everything out, talk to all the stakeholders, talk to the users, do the research, sometimes do some marketing research first, do the UX designs and the UI designs, and all of that done before the product development starts. All of that work was actually useless, because after 6 to 8 weeks of working on the product, we've been working on something totally different than the things that were estimated. Maybe not 100% different, but usually half of the scope that we were working were never included in the initial estimation, and nobody had chance to actually figure out that based on this feedback loop, especially when we go live in a couple of weeks, sometimes even. Usually we aim to go live in less than 3 months to production. When we go live to the production and when the end users saw the product, they provide the feedback one way or another, and they could provide it explicitly, or they were just data that we measured and we saw the user's behavior. All of that had an impact on the scope, and it usually happens that the scope that we were working on the very beginning and the scope that we were estimating at the very beginning was totally different from actually the user's needs. So I never seen a scope that would survive the crash with the real market and real users. Like I never seen in the past. If you had seen that you have like a 1 year long project that was fully estimated at the beginning, and when you go for production, it works like, it works perfectly after this year of development. You went to production, it works exactly as you defined in the scope, and users were extremely happy and were using it. Then called me. I want to hear this story. I never seen it in the past. I used to work as an agile coach, as a consultant. I used to work with more than 100 companies worldwide, or actually in Europe mostly. And I never seen it in any company that they would succeed with it. Usually it's like they went to production, and then there is like a phase of hot fix, bug fix, changing, adding stuff, etc. And this is like a nightmare. Developers start complaining that, but there is like a legacy code, there is an architecture that now we need to change, and the cost of these changes are way more higher than the initial cost that was estimated. This is crazy. I've seen it many times, and I do not recommend you that. And there are better ways to do this, and we'll talk about it soon. So if it's so wrong to work on a fixed mindset, why people are still trying it? So if, like, I'm pretty sure that many people already experienced that, seen it from different angles, and saw these problems, and why they are still trying it. So first of all, the biggest problem, I think, is that they just do not know the better way, and this is the thing that I believe could be changed easily. Like, for example, you are now watching this video. Second one is that people like to feel safe, like to feel secure, that they know how much money they will need to spend, and they want to have this security. They try to assure it by some contracts, and that's okay. Yeah, like this is my favorite fish baking story. I don't know if you know the fish baking story. It's more or less like that. That there was a little girl and her mother, and the mother was preparing a fish. She was baking a fish on a frying pan. And when she started baking it, she cut the fish into 3 pieces and put it into the frying pan. And this little girl asked her mother, "Mom, why always when you are frying a fish on a pan, you cut it into 3 pieces and put it in the pan?" And the mother said that, "You know what? Actually, I don't know. My mother always do this that way, so I do it too. So maybe let's go to your grandmother and my mother and ask her why did she always cut the fish in 3 pieces before putting it on a frying pan." Okay, so they went there to the grandmother, and they asked, "Grandmother, why you always cut the fish into 3 pieces before you put it on the frying pan?" And grandmother says, "You know what? My mother always did it that way. Your grandmother. And I am always doing this that way because everyone was doing this that way, and my mother was doing that. So let's maybe ask your grandmother." So they went to the very old grandmother, and they asked her, "Grandmother, why have you cut the fish into 3 pieces before you put it on the frying pan?" And the grandmother answered, "You know why? Because we always have 2 small frying pan, and the whole fish were not fit on our small frying pan, so we had to cut it into 3 pieces." As you can see, this is like this project management triangle that I show you at one of the first slides. It's like in the 950 they use it because the context was totally different, and now they are trying to use it still because everyone is using it, and they didn't notice that things changed. Another thing that the reason why people are trying to protect themselves with the fixed scope, fixed budget mindset, contracts, is that it's very, very hard to trust people. In that you actually don't know, and this is why we try to protect ourselves, but by the contracts. And of course, if you don't know what is it about, it's all about the money, and they want to know how much does it cost, how much will it cost. But there are other ways to do this. If not a fixed scope, then what? First of all, and we saw that in the successful founders mindsets that we had the pleasure to work with, they were aware that the scope has to be flexible, and they show it from the very, very beginning that everything could be changed, and everything most probably will change, or most of the things will change. In terms of the budget, of course, it's very important to be secure in terms of how much money you will spend on the product development, but you can do this in the other way around. You can actually limit the budget. You can talk openly to your team, to the vendor that you are working with, and tell them that you don't want to, or you can't spend more than that. And then you can monitor the budget and how much you actually get for what you are paying on the go, not at the end of the project, but during the project development. And this is pretty secure. Of course, it's also great to start with some goals and metrics around these goals, and set some milestones that will be a checkpoint. So, for example, till the end of this year, we want to have a product that will have, let's say, 5,000 users and will get like $100,000 in revenue. But it's at the end of the year, but we already have almost May. So let's say that in September, to be there where we want to be at the end of the year, we want to have, let's say, 200 users and $30,000 in revenue. And this is our checkpoint that we are aiming for at the beginning. And measuring those things, or even looking for another metrics, this is crucial. Also involving a supplier or vendor or your team into working on the ways how to achieve this metric might be a game changer. And of course, the short feedback loops. As I said, we are working in a 2 weeks long iterations where at least once at the end of the iteration, we present the product to the stakeholders, to the founder, to the managers, sometimes to the users, and we ask for the feedback. Usually we do this way more often than that. And also we are releasing the product to production as soon as possible to actually receive the feedback from the market. And then after we release it for the first time, we are releasing it continuously. Like every feature that we consider done goes live. Maybe not every, but almost every, or every that makes sense, goes live as soon as it's ready, as soon as it's tested. We want to check if people are using it, how they are using it, what could be optimized, what could be changed, or if they are not using it, maybe we should remove it, remove it immediately, just after we found that nobody is using it, or that you are struggling with using it, or it's confusing. Why? Because the more code we have, the more features we have, the more complex our product is, and that makes it more difficult to extend it, to change it in the future. And this is just a legacy and the depth that we are making. In terms of the contract should be flexible for both parties, and that should be fair for the vendor, but especially for the buyer. If you are working in a short feedback loop with your team, with your vendor, and you see that the cooperation doesn't work, and that could be from the many reasons, not only because of the vendor quality, services quality, or because of founders problems or something. But if you can see that the cooperation doesn't work, you need to have a way to actually terminate the contract pretty fast, and not to be not to lose a lot because of that. The question that founders often ask when I'm trying to explain them why the fixed scope, why estimation is not the best idea, and why they shouldn't trust the estimation, the question that they usually ask is, okay, but I need to know how much do I need to actually build my product? And you know what, this is like a very tough question, but there are a few other things. Like, first of all, if you're a founder and you want to build a product, why do you need to know that? Why do you need to know how much you need to have money to build a product? This is something that is not obvious, but if you're a founder, most probably you already know how much money do you have, and or at least how much money you can have to build the product. And instead of asking for how much will it cost, you can ask for something else. If you already know what is the price in your head, in your mind, that you want to spend on the product, why you're asking for how much someone will do this for? There are better ways to do this. Like, instead of that, you can actually provide the budget to the vendor, set your goal, explain what do you want to achieve, explain where you want to be in the next couple of weeks, months, or something, and ask them how they could help you achieve that. I'm pretty sure if you would do this, you will be extremely surprised by the results. Like, whenever I recommended it to the people, even the people who didn't want to work with us, but move forward and try with other software houses, they were extremely surprised what they could achieve. Even if the budget was too small, for example, for us to actually work on the product, we were able to recommend them, like, for example, okay, your budget is too small. Maybe you should start with some, pretty cheap one freelancer from, I don't know, India or somewhere else, and or Belarus or another country that, the salaries are lower, but still the quality of service is fair enough, and ask them to help you with some prototyping or MVP. Or maybe you should spend your budget on the marketing agency. We could recommend you a few that will help you with the market research, with preparing a good pitch deck that you can go to the investors to, etc. Also, when people came to us with this approach, with this mindset, and among the clients that I mentioned at the very first slides, some of them came to us with this approach that they told us about the budget that they have, and in some cases it was extremely small budget for the things that they were actually planning to build, but they also mentioned the goals that they have in their mind. For example, when you came to the software vendor, or when you came to your team with the approach that I want to achieve some goal, and you define this goal as I want to build a product, actually, are you sure that building a product is your goal itself? Or maybe there are other goals, like, for example, maybe your goal is to actually raise the money, raise the funding from the investors to actually grow the product later on. And having this goal in mind defines a totally different scope than the goal that you will express as I want to build a product. Because to raise a funding, maybe you don't need a complete solution. Maybe you just need a demo version. For example, when you are building a trading platform, you cannot do this in a budget of, let's say, $50,000 or 50,000 euro. You need a lot of more money only to satisfy the compliance and the regulations. You need like 200 or 300,000. Not even saying about the functionalities that will be unique for your platform. But what you could do with the 50,000, you can actually build some demo that won't be compliant, that won't be reliable, that won't be secure. But most cases, it will present the uniqueness of your platform to your potential users, that you can demo it to, you can present the solution, you can sign an initial contract, you can go with these initial contracts or at least the intention letters from them to your potential investors, present them the demo, present them the potential clients, the buyers, show the forecast of the revenue stream. And actually, if you will not get the funding, the money that you actually need to build this platform, having that on the table, you are doing something terribly wrong. I don't know, maybe you suck at presentation or something, or I don't know. But that also could be solved. You can hire some actor to the presentation or something. No worries. But still, yeah, if you define the correct goal and if you talk about the budget openly with a vendor or with your team, it will be much easier for them to help you, to advise you on what could be done and how to do this and how to actually achieve the goal. Yeah, and people are saying, okay, but I am in the very early stage. I do not have a budget at all. I'm looking for an investor. I need to know how much they want to spend. And you know, you don't need to ask for the estimate. I have some pricing for you. Those are the prices from Poland, and this presentation will be later on available, so you can read it. But actually, for building the MVP using some team of freelancers, you need from 20 to 70K of dollars. You can even find it cheaper if you would really have to, but cheaper means lower quality most probably. If you want to build some demo version of your product, it will be up to $100,000. You can do this for less, but still, $50,000 or $100,000. This is the budget that you can expect. If you want to go to production with any product actually that you can imagine that have to be scalable and at some decent quality level, you need to have from 80 to 200,000 K. And last but not least, when you go to production, it's not the end. It's actually the beginning. This is the moment when you collect the feedback. This is the moment that you have to work on the product right now, and you have to extend it. You have to improve it. You need to react for the competition. You need to react for the market, for the users, and this is pretty hard. So you need to think about long term, and for that you can imagine that 1 year of product development costs something around $350,000 to $750,000 if you have a pretty decent complete product development team that's working on it. So you can easily estimate based on this number the amount that you actually need to ask the investor for. And you don't need to waste your time on writing documentation, on talking to the software houses, software vendors, and doing all of the things that will be totally useless in the future. And you are just wasting the time, and you are trying to choose the cheapest vendor, but maybe it's not the best idea. Yeah, and this is the another topic. So what I often hear from founders, from product managers is, okay, so if not by the price, so how could I compare the software houses? And this is price is not the best way to compare the vendors. And if you will ask yourself this question, what do you think is making the difference between the estimations? Like one company will estimate your product for 200K, another for 350. Who is better? The cheaper one is better, or the more expensive one is better? Like, this is not so obvious. Like, you know, if you ask the question, if you compare that, you can ask the question, okay, are they really good in software development, or maybe they are only good in estimating, not in the product development? And maybe the cheaper one just didn't understood your requirements correctly, or they do not have experience in building this kind of product, so they didn't assume a lot of things that the more expensive vendor already know, because they have more experience, and then they build similar things in the past, so they know that they cost more than those who are just new in this one. So it's pretty hard, and it's not very good to compare estimates at all. And ask yourself, what is your goal? Like, if your goal is to actually choose the cheapest one, or maybe choose based on the estimate, or maybe your goal is totally different and it's more about making the money on the product. And you need to validate not how good the software house, software vendor is in estimating, but maybe you should validate how good they could be in helping you achieve this goal. And of course, estimation is not representing the total cost of ownership of the product. They, for example, do not include the cost of future development, extension, maintenance. And you need to be aware that I already told that in contemporary world, the product development is never finished. Okay, and so wrapping things up, what are the successful startups founders' mindset? This is something that we gathered from our experience of working with various companies, and we saw a few things. Like, first of all, they understand that things are changing, and they are open to change, adaptability. For example, Zuckerberg, who you can see here. Are you aware what they did in Facebook recently when, after all of this pandemic, COVID, lockdown, and other stuff, they noticed that people are start using Facebook Messenger for video more often. So what they did, they started working on the product and then pretty fast delivered it to production. It's like a huge corporate right now. Like Facebook is a huge corporate, but they still can move fast as a startup. And they release a new version of the messenger that allow you to do the video conferences with various people, creating some rooms and providing a better experience for video conferencing. So they are aware of changing and they are adapting to it. A good startup founders, the great startup founders, they are never looking for an employees. They are looking for partners. Even if they are looking for employees, they are selecting them not basing on the capabilities of their or the experience, but later on the mindset of people who they want to work with. Like they are looking for people who will be involved, especially at the very early stage, on the people who will be involved in the product development as it would be their own product. Like they are looking people who are thinking similarly to the startup founders, the developers, IT people who are business oriented. Of course, great startup founders are having this great big ideas in their mind when they are starting development, but they are moving by making a lot of very, very small steps and validating their small hypotheses one at a time or a few at a time, and changing direction pretty often. Like a big picture, big idea, but they are not heading from here to somewhere there, but they are later moving using small steps, sometimes one way, sometimes another, because there are plenty other opportunities that they could catch on the way. They also knows how to when they need to cut the quality, because it's also important to, the quality is very important, as I mentioned before, but it's not the most important at the very beginning of the project, especially at the very beginning of the project. Sometimes the speed is more important than that, but the good founders, like this is something that distinguish extremely good founders or great startup founders from the just good startup founders, is that usually just good, and we saw it many times, just good startup founders, they usually know that they need to move really, really fast. And they are moving really, really fast, and they are moving really fast for too long. What do I mean is that they are pricing speed over quality, and they forget at some point that maybe it's a good moment to stop and to actually fix the quality and to actually improve the quality, because there are bigger challenges around. And finding this moment in the right moment is extremely hard, and this is what not every startup founder could do. And this is something that you can observe in various startups, that at some point, usually after first, second round of investment, usually the founder is removed from the management, or actually operational management, and there is some professional manager hired as a let's say CEO or operator COO or product manager or product or CPO, who is more experienced in actually finding this balance between the speed and quality, and is able to slow down but improve the quality, improve the other things. And this is actually the good thing. So as I mentioned at the very beginning, what do they have in common is that they never think about the product in the fixed mindset. No fixed scope, no fixed budget, no fixed time. things are changing and they are evolving all the time. Everything needs to be changeable. The world is changing and your product needs to adapt to it. The COVID-19 situation, I'm pretty curious how many of founders who signed the fixed price contract are happy right now with the scope that they defined at the very beginning. Of course, in most of the fixed price contracts, there is a possibility to change the scope, but usually it's pretty hard and it's pretty costly both for the buyer and the vendor. And I wonder how they are happy with that at the moment. And of course, the great founders embrace the failure. They are not afraid of fail. Like Elon Musk is my favorite example. I cannot recall how many times he failed with launching his rockets in SpaceX. But and what do they have in common? So they are flexible for the very beginning. They have never asked for the estimates. They never sent the extensive documentation to the team. They are pretty open and transparent in terms of sharing the information and what's going on. The information is very important for everyone in the organization, and even when you're working with the external vendors, the more they know, then better they could serve you with their experience. Yeah, and they are usually goal-oriented, not functionality-oriented. And trust is something that is very important in product development. Okay, so from me, it's all. Thank you for that. We fit into 1 hour. If you have any questions right now, you can even ask them. I have also one very important thing for you. We prepared as a Pragmatic, we prepared some special offer for everyone who is watching it right now. And the offer is that we might have a team that will be available for you at the very attractive price, at the very discounted price right now. If you think that you have this kind of successful startup founders mindset. If you think that your product, your startup has a potential to be very successful, we will be more than happy to work with you, even at the very discounted price at the very beginning, just to be a part of something that is great. We are doing this because one of our goals for the next less than 10 years, because we plan to achieve it before 2030. This one of our goals is to work on at least 10 unicorns with our clients, build at least 10 unicorns. The unicorn, that it's a startup is worth $1 billion at least. And if you think that your startup have such a potential, and if you think that you are the founder, or that your founder of your startup has this mindset, please contact us, and we'll be more than happy to help you, to cooperate with you. This offer is valid till let's say 6th of May, so the next Wednesday. So if you think that you fit to this mindset and you have a great idea, contact us, and I'm pretty sure that we'll find some cooperation model that will be successful for both for us and for you. Okay, so do you have any questions? Okay, I see we do not have any questions. So thank you very much. If you will have any questions later on, or if you are watching this video after some time, not during the live video, just contact us. We'll answer all of your questions, and I wish you to have a great, depending on where you are, because I know we have people from all over the world. I wish you a great day, afternoon, or evening. Thank you very much. and see you on the next webinar that I think we are planning to do in the next 2 weeks. And the webinar will be about funding, as far as I know, but that will be announced on our meetup groups. So stay tuned and let's stay in touch. Thank you very much. Bye.